an action buddy movie starring two of the biggest names of its time, Sylvester Stallone and Kurt Russell, in a fun action movie about two unlikely cops who have to work together after being framed and save the day just in time for the end credits. Sounds simple enough. What could go wrong? Well, despite the fact the 1989 movie Tango and Cash has gone on to be considered a classic action movie of its time, the making of this movie was an absolute nightmare, and it's a miracle it was even completed. So to try and figure out why Tango and Cash had such a chaotic production behind the scenes, we're going to explore 10 things that you didn't know about Tango and Cash. Buckle up, Buster! So it's time to play Bad Cop, Worst Cop as we explore 10 things that you didn't know about Tango and Cash. A seemingly normal tough guy action movie from the 80s, of which behind the scenes its production was anything but normal, but more like a chaotic nightmare. So let the Stallone thinks he's Rambo meta jokes commence as we check it out. Number 10, original title. Tango and Cash was the brainchild of giant spider enthusiast John Peters, as he wanted to tell the story of two mismatched cops who are rivals but have to work together after being framed by a drug lord. One thing to keep in mind is the cop buddy trope of the pairing of two heroes who are unlikely to get along but have to pull through and reach common ground in order to save the day was the rage in the 80s and early 90s. What with the likes of 48 Hours, Red Heat, Last Boy Scout, and Lethal Weapon. So Peters and his producing partner, Peter Guber, hired scriptwriter Randy Feldman to write a script, of which the movie was originally going to be called The Setup. Well, that title is more, straight to the point. Feldman hasn't too many writing credits to his name. He would go on to write an Eddie Murphy movie called Metro, but other than that, the odd bits of writing he's done here and there I'm not too familiar with. However, as production went on, the script would be constantly changing and going through rewrites. One of the writers who came on board to work on the script was Jeffrey Boehm, who previously worked on the script for Lethal Weapon and would also write the script for Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. And he really did not like the script, finding it long and awful, and he didn't like the final film either. Despite working on the script, he requested for his name to be removed from the movie. Number 9, original casting. So considering Tango and Cash is the pairing of two 80s movie tough guys, the production wanted the best of the best, where Rocky and Rambo himself, Sylvester Stallone, was cast as Ray Tango, which makes sense as he was pretty much action movie royalty at that point. And the part of Gabriel Cash went to none other than Patrick Swayze. Yep, Tango and Cash was originally going to see the pairing of Sylvester Stallone and Patrick Swayze. However, during the early days of production, Swayze left Tango and Cash to star in what is, in my opinion, the fourth greatest movie of all time, Roadhouse. So his replacement was Kurt Russell, who of course also had proven to be a reliable movie tough guy during the 80s, and definitely had the ability to inject the right amount of humour into the movie. Number 8, the original director was fired. So the director chosen to direct Tango and Cash was Russian director Andrei Konchalovsky. However, 3 months into the shoot, he was fired, creating a rare occurrence of a director being fired well and truly into a movie shoot. And there are multiple reasons given for his firing. One was over creative differences he was having with producer John Peters. Apparently Konchalovsky wanted a darker, serious tone, whereas Peters wanted something more comical and goofy and more like a spoof, with the situation being described as two men making two completely different movies. Apparently Konchalovsky didn't want to give in to Peters' demands, and their relationship really soured to the point where they couldn't work together. It's also being claimed that Konchalovsky was fired for budgetary reasons, with the production going over its intended budget, which apparently wasn't even his fault, and even claims that he was just simply in over his head with the movie. But regardless, a new director was urgently needed to finish this beast. Number 7, replacement directors. So the production of Tango and Cash was not off to a good start. It was behind schedule, had a ballooning budget, with lots of egos with their own ideas as to what the movie is. And above all, a new director was urgently needed to be brought in. Now, it's said that executive producer and second unit director Peter MacDonald, who already had a working relationship with Stallone as he previously directed Rambo 3, took over directing duties till a more permanent director could be found. Finally, music video director Albert Magnoli was brought in to complete Tango and Cash's directing duties. Magnoli mainly worked with Prince throughout his career, having directed several of his music videos and even the movie Purple Rain. Yeah, dude went from Prince to Tango and Cash. Rock on. Number 6, the director of photography was fired too. Okay, if things couldn't get any more complicated with people coming and going into this production, the movie's original director of photography, Donald Peterman, who previously shot Flashdance and Star Trek IV The Voyage Home, walked out of the production 4 months into the shoot. Yep, he just had enough and left. However, there are also claims that he was fired by Stallone. So the next director of photography that was brought in was Barry Sonnenfeld, who would go on to direct the Addams Family movies and Men in Black. But he too was also fired by Sylvester Stallone. Okay, how is Stallone, the movie's actor, able to fire so many people in the production? I mean, you don't normally hear of a movie star having this much power and control over a movie production. Well, this leads me to my next point. Number 5, Stallone takes charge. It's been said that at this stage, Stallone had a massive ego and a lot of power, due to his fame and success. I mean, the guy did give us Rambo and Rocky, and was a big actor at that time. And it seems that he particularly had a lot of power on the set of Tango and Cash. In fact, the movie's original director, Andrei Konchalovsky, claimed that Stallone was unofficially working as the movie's director, producer, and writer. So clearly this was a Stallone barbecue, and he called the shots. Although there are also claims that this was actually a good thing, as Stallone was the driving force that held the movie together, and had a knack for knowing for what did work and what didn't work. No doubt due to his long career of starring in lots of action movies. The director of photography that was eventually chosen was Donald E. Thorin, who previously photographed Stallone's previous movie, Lock Up, so clearly he was in good graces with the star. And to the best of my knowledge, Kurt Russell wasn't responsible for anyone getting fired on the set of Tango and Cash. According to Wikipedia, one unnamed crew member stated that the Tango and Cash production was the worst prepared and ill-organised production that he had ever worked on, and that no one really knew what was going on or what they were doing. Yeah, the whole thing was a chaotic mess. And so it was probably just as well that they had Sylvester Stallone and his fancy schmancy gloves around to take charge. Seriously, check out those gloves. Number 4. Then the producers were removed from the production. Oh, jeez. Yes, if you can believe it, Tango and Cash ended in a lawsuit, which saw its producers John Peters and Peter Guber take Warner Brothers to court, whom were distributing Tango and Cash. Okay, so this is kind of complicated, so I'll do my best to explain. If it's not really clear, I apologize in advance. Okay, Peters and Guber had a 5-year contract with Warner Brothers, in which their production company, the Guber-Peters Company, had produced several movies for Warner Brothers, including The Color Purple, The Witches of Eastwick, Gorillas in the Mist, and Rain Man. But during the making of Tango and Cash, Sony then hired the producers to run fellow movie company, Columbia Pictures. When word got out about this, Warners were pissed and filed a lawsuit against Sony and removed Peters and Guber from the Tango and Cash production. Yeah, they were no longer part of the film anymore. Warner Brothers then advanced the release date of Tango and Cash against the producers' wishes. Maybe possibly as a sly FU to them. But yeah, Peters and Guber no longer had any say or creative control over the movie. Damn, everyone's getting fired today. Peters and Guber took Warner Brothers to court, and the case was settled. Incidentally, that very year, the producers also produced Batman for Warner Brothers, which was the biggest movie of that year. I guess it just goes to show no one is too big for getting the sack. Number 3, Race to the Finish Line. Okay, so trying to get Tango and Cash completed was absolute hell for all involved. The production originally wanted the movie to be released on December the 15th. However, once filming wrapped up, it was decided that a new opening sequence was needed, so the crew rushed out to film this sequence at a lightning speed. Yep, Tango and Cash's opening as we know it was a last-minute addition, a very last-minute addition. Then the editing process had started, and every edit of the movie that was put together was rejected by Warner Brothers. You see, Stallone's previous Warner Brothers picture, Cobra, had big issues with the MPAA, and the studio did not want a repeat of that. So this time round, they were more strict with the use of violence. Every cut that was submitted, Warner Brothers would pretty much say, go back and try again. Then another cut was put together, go back and try again, so on and so forth. Rinse and repeat. In an attempt of desperation to save the movie, of which many felt the movie was a mess that no one could salvage, Stuart Baird, who previously worked on Lethal Weapon, took over the movie in its later stages of production and editing. Many scenes of violence would have to be trimmed, along with several action scenes and plot points also being removed, making it sound like the movie was absolutely butchered in its editing. Finally, a cut was put together which Warner Brothers approved of, and the movie was given an intended R rating. It did, however, miss its intended December the 15th release date. Number 2. Tango and Box Office Cash. Tango and Cash was released in late December 1989, and despite all the chaos behind the scenes, it was financially successful, bringing in a profit of $120 million against its $54 million budget. It actually made the same amount of money as Lethal Weapon, so clearly all the action fans were going to see it. But I guess Lethal Weapon was more successful as that movie had a lower budget. However, the critical reception was not great, with Tango and Cash being described as dull, predictable, and illogical, with its story and acting also being criticised. In a scathing review, the Los Angeles Times labelled it as, quote, a waste of talent and energy on all levels. And it was even nominated for 3 Razzies. Wow! I don't know what Tango and Cash did to piss off the mainstream, but they really didn't like it. Despite all this though, Tango and Cash has gone on to be considered a fan favourite and a standout movie for Stallone, Russell, and 80s action movies in general. So clearly when it comes to this movie, the fans and critics have differing opinions. To be fair, it's just a fun movie of its time. It's not going to break ground, but it will give you a fun thrill ride while you eat your popcorn, leaving you satisfied when you reach the end. And sometimes that's just all you need. Number 1, Tango and Cash marked the end of a truly wonderful era of cinema. The 1980s is considered the greatest era of all time when it comes to movies, particularly by my generation. Even today, people still can't get over the movies of this decade, and they're still widely celebrated, probably even more so than modern movies. So in this regard, Tango and Cash is actually a very important movie, as it marks the end of that era, the last hurrah in this seemingly perfect timeline of cinema, as Tango and Cash was released on December the 22nd, 1989, making it one of the last movies to come out of that decade, at least one of the last American movies, alongside Steven Spielberg's Always and Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing. Yes, the 1980s was the decade of Darth Vader telling Luke that he is his father. The time when Jack went crazy at the Overlook Hotel. The time when Flash fought for each and every one of us. The time when the Blues Brothers were on a mission from God. The time when we were introduced to Indiana Jones. The time of the Road Warrior. That time an American tourist became a werewolf. The time when we entered the world of Tron. The time of Khan. The time when Deckard hunted down replicants. The time when E.T. phoned home. A time when little Carol Ann Freeling said they're here. A time when we were all repulsed by the Thing. The time when Tony Montana told us to say hello to his little friend. The time when the Griswolds went on vacation. The time when Kevin Bacon just wanted to dance. When Arnie was tracking down Sarah Connor. And when Freddy Krueger was the man of our dreams. A time when Daniel LaRusso entered a karate tournament. A time when the Ghostbusters fired up their proton packs. A time when Eddie Murphy headed to Beverly Hills. A time when Billy Peltzer got a new pet. That time the Wolverines were forced to fight for their country. A time when Bastian read The Neverending Story. A time when Marty McFly had to get back to the future. A time when Rocky fought Drago and solved the Cold War. A time when the Goonies set out to find treasure. A time where one Saturday detention could fix teenage angst. A time when Tom Cruise had the need for speed, and Ferris Bueller took a day off, and Mick Dundee had the whole world fall in love with Australia. A time when Ripley kicked alien butt. A time when four friends set out to find a dead body. A time of the David Bowie bulge. A time when Brundlefly made us all feel nauseous. A time when hunting season had begun. A time when RoboCop would buy that for $1. A time when The Evil Dead became groovy. A time when Riggs and Murtaugh became partners. A time when that dance movie came out that your sister would constantly watch. A time when greed is good. A time when vampires became cool. A time when John McClane took out terrorists at the Nakatomi Plaza. A time when Beetlejuice was the ghost with the most. A time when Roger Rabbit was framed. A time when Bill and Ted had to pass a history report. The time Jack Dalton had to clean up the double deuce. And a time when Michael Keaton proved that he was the best Batman ever. And to think all this ended with Sylvester Stallone on the set of Tango and Cash, firing everyone and the kitchen sink. What a truly brilliant and unforgettable decade. In recent years, Stallone has been open to the possibility of returning to the world of Tango and Cash and making a legacy sequel. But from what I've read, it's Kurt Russell who's been like, nah, come on guys, let's not do that. So what do you guys think? Would you be up for a Tango and Cash sequel? Or, like me, do you think that what happened in 1989 should stay in 1989? Anyway, I'm Minty, and according to Google Translate, in Japan, Tango and Cash was retitled to Deadfall. Yeah, Deadfall. You know, I'm just pointing it out. See ya!